And quote, I decided, after my first trip, to live peacefully the rest of my days in Baghdad, as I had the honor to tell you yesterday. But it wasn't and #39 long before I felt bored again. Life was too leisurely. The desire to travel on the sea combined with trading again invaded my mind. I went to look for goods suitable for bartering according to my wishes, and then set out a second time with other merchants whose upright hearts I knew. We boarded a sturdy ship, and, having committed our fate to God, we set out to sea. From island to island. We traded very profitably. One day, we went to an island full of fruit trees, but it was so deserted that we didn't and #39 see any houses or people. We went together. Walking together on the young grasslands and along the streams flowing through the beach. While one person picked flowers and another picked fruit, I brought food and a bottle of wine with me, looking for a place to sit next to a stream of water running in the middle. The big trees give great shade, making for a delicious meal. After eating, I felt my eyes close up. I leaned next to the tree and didn't and #39 know how long I would sleep, but when I opened my eyes, I could no longer see the ship anchored nearby. At this point Scheherazade was forced to stop talking because the day had already dawned. But the next night, she continued to tell the story of Sinbad and number 39's second trip to the sea as follows. And quote, I was very surprised, said Sinbad, that I did not see the ship anchored anywhere. Sitting up, I looked around me. The merchants who had set foot on the island with me did not see anyone. I only saw the ship and number 39's sail, but it was so far away that it was lost in just a moment. Please try to imagine. Let and number 39's see what I think in that sad situation. I thought I would die from disappointment and pain. I cried out in horror, punched myself on the head and threw myself on the ground. For a long time, I immersed myself in these thoughts. Confused thoughts of death, sadness, boredom. Hundreds of times I scolded myself for being foolish enough to not be satisfied with the first trip. It should have made me so old that I never dared to take a trip. Anything else. But all my regrets were too late. In the end I had to endure God and number 39's will, and not knowing what would become of me, I climbed a tall tree, brought my eyes, looked around to see if I could find anything that gave me some hope. Looking out to sea, I only saw sky and water, but looking toward the mainland, I noticed something white. I immediately jumped down, grabbed the remaining food I brought with me, and walked toward that white object. It was so far away that I could and #39 tell what it was. When I got a little closer, I realized that it was a tall and large, scary white round mass. When I was completely close, I touched it with my hand and saw that it was smooth. I walked around it to see if there was a door, but I didn't and #39 see one. And because it and number 39's so smooth, there and number 39's no way to climb up. Its circumference can reach 50 feet. At that time the sun was about to set. The sky suddenly became dark as if covered with a thick cloud. But if I was surprised by the sudden darkness, I was even more surprised when I realized that the culprit was an unusually large bird flying towards me. Suddenly remembering a bird called an eagle that I often heard sailors talk about, I realized that the large round mass I was admiring could be the egg of that bird. Standing like that, it landed on that block and sat down as if to incubate it. Seeing it fly, I leaned close to the egg so that in front of me was a bird and number 39's leg, as big as a tree trunk. I tied myself to that leg with a strip of cloth wrapped around my scarf, hoping that the next day the eagle would take flight and take me off this deserted island. Sure enough, after a night in that state, when it started to get light, the bird took off and carried me up high, so high that I could n/39 see the ground anymore. Then it plunged down so fast that I could n/39 feel anything anymore. When the eagle landed and saw that I was already on the ground, I quickly untied the strip of cloth and tied myself to its leg. As soon as I left the animal and number 39's foot, it reached out and pecked at an unprecedentedly long snake, raised its paw to grab it, and immediately flew away. The place where the eagle put me down was a very deep valley, surrounded by high mountains that reached into the clouds and were so steep that there was no way to climb them. Another new awkward situation for me, comparing this place to the deserted island I had just left. Nothing had changed. Walking in the valley, I saw shiny diamonds scattered here and there, some of which were strangely large. I really enjoyed looking at them, but suddenly seeing things in the distance made me lose all interest and could n/39 help but shudder. It was a group of many snakes that were so big and long, perhaps not one of them was strong enough to swallow an elephant. During the day, they all crawl into caves, hiding there to avoid eagles, their enemies. Only at night do they crawl out. All day I wandered in the valley and occasionally sat and rested in cool, airy places. Then the sun set and, at dusk, I retreated to a cave I considered safe. I carried a big rock to block the entrance, which was narrow, but not tightly closed so that a little outside light could shine in while still keeping the snakes out. I ate part of the food I brought with me while the sound of spitting snakes began to appear. Their horrible sputtering sounds scared me so much that I could n/39 have a quiet night and number 39's rest, as you can imagine. The sun rose, the snakes retreated to their caves. I was also shaking as I walked out, and it can be said without exaggeration that I stepped on so many diamonds for a long time without feeling the slightest desire. Finally, I found a place to sit and rest, and even though I was worried and anxious, because I had an n/39 closed my eyes all night, I fell asleep. But after only a moment, I was startled awake because I saw something fall next to me, making a loud noise. It was a piece of fresh meat, and at the same time I saw many other pieces of meat rolling down from the cliffs everywhere. Previously, I thought it was just a story about giving gifts to sailors and some other people. They talked many times about the Valley of Diamonds and the tricks some traders used to pick up those precious stones. Now I know that they were telling the truth. Indeed, those traders came to this valley during the time when the eagles gave birth. They cut beef, pork, and lamb into large pieces and threw them into the valley. The precious stones in the exact spot where the piece of meat falls will cling to it, and the eagles, which in this country are bigger and stronger than those in other places, will swoop down and grab those pieces of meat and bring them back to their nests far up in the mountains. High mountain peaks. As bait for baby birds. So, the traders climbed up to the place, shouting and banging to make noise to scare the birds away and pick up the diamonds that were stuck to the flesh. They had to use that trick because there was no way to get the precious stones in the valley that was like a deep abyss with no way up or down. I thought there was no way I could get out of this abyss and considered this as my grave. But what I saw changed my mind. I figured out a way to preserve my life. Daylight had cleared, forcing Scheherazade to stop talking. But she continued this story the next night. "Oh, and quat. Your Majesty," she spoke, still aiming for the Indian Emperor. Sinbad continued to recount the adventures of his second trip to all of them. "I began to search," he said, the biggest diamond under my eyes and filled it into the polybag I used to store food in. Then I chose the longest piece of meat and wrapped it around my body, tied it with my head scarf, and just like that, I lay face down on the ground, the leather bag containing the diamonds tied tightly to my belt so that it could not fall. As soon as I finished preparing, a flock of eagles flew in. Each of them grabbed a piece of meat. One of the eagles flew in. The strongest one did the same, grabbed the piece of meat, and with me inside, took it up the high mountain to its nest. The traders were waiting there, screaming loudly, causing the eagles to panic and leave their prey and fly away. One of them came closer, and when he saw me, his eyes widened in fear. But he immediately regained his composure. Instead of asking me why I was there, he instead made a scene and asked me why I was appropriating my property. His property. I told him, "You will speak to me in a more humane manner when you know me better. Rest assured," I added, "I have enough diamonds for you and more for me than for all the people. Those add up. If they have any, it and number 39's just luck. As for me, I picked each pill right at the bottom of the valley and put it in the leather bag you see here." As I spoke, I showed him the bag. Before I could finish my sentence, other traders gathered around me, extremely surprised to see me, and even more surprised to hear me tell my story. They admired not only the cunning I used to escape that abyss, but also my daring and courage. They led me back to my shared lodgings, and there in front of them I opened the leather bag. My large-sized diamonds made them admire and say that in all the royal courts they had been to, they had not seen a diamond like that. I told the dealer, the owner of the bird and number 39's nest that I was brought to, because every dealer has a nest that belongs to him, that he could choose as many pellets as he wanted. But he only took one pill. It was an #39. Very big. When I begged him to just take more, without causing me any loss, he said, "No, I and number 39 am already very satisfied with this pill. It is also precious and valuable enough that from now on I no longer have to work hard to find capital." I spent the night with these traders, telling them my story again because there were a number of people whose requests had not been heard. I cannot restrain my joy when I feel that I have been lucky enough to escape all the dangers I have just told you about. I felt as if the situation I had experienced was just a dream and was convinced that I had nothing to fear. For several days the traders threw hunks of meat into the valley, and as each one seemed satisfied with the diamonds he had obtained, the next day we all set out. We crossed high mountains where there were extremely long snakes. Luckily, we were able to avoid them and no one was harmed. We first arrived at a port, from there passed the island of Roja, where the tree from which camphor is grown grows. This tree is huge, its branches are dense, its shade can shade hundreds of people. Its sap flows out from a place carved into its body high up and collected in a vase. The thickened resin is camphor. Such an extraction will cause the plant to die and dry out. On this island there is also a rhinoceros species that is smaller than an elephant but larger than a buffalo. They have a horn on their nose that is several inches long. This horn is solid, with a ridge in the middle from one side to the other. On the horns there are white lines shaped like human faces. The rhino fought with the elephant, used its horn to hit its stomach and lifted the elephant on its head. But because blood and fat flowed down his eyes, the rhino could no longer see and fell to the ground. This must have surprised you as the eagle flew to grab both of them with its super strong claws and bring them back to raise their children. There are many other special things on this island, but I skipped them because I and number 39 am afraid you and number 39 have to hear too many boring things. I exchanged a few diamonds for items here that are of high quality. From this island we passed through many other islands and finally, after visiting many trading cities, we arrived at Balsora and from here I returned to Baghdad. First of all, I give alms generously to the poor and happily enjoy the endless wealth that I have earned, the result of many hardships. Sinbad told the story of his second trip like that. He told his family to bring Hindbad another 100 sequins and told him to come the next day to hear about his third trip. The invited guests returned home and again came to Sinbad and number 39's house. The seafarers the next day were just as punctual, and even the porter had almost forgotten some of the poverty of the past days. They sat at the dining table again, and after the meal, Sinbad was asked to tell the story about the third trip. Details as follows. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.